This meeting is now called to order. Ms. Gaynor will introduce our visitors.
Good morning. I'm going to start over here with Barry Maka, our General Counsel. Kibble is Director of Internal Audit. Vice President Marilyn Foley. Stovall, our Controller. Vice President Tony Vidmar. We're going to go back over here to Dr. David Carlston, who's with the Faculty Senate. Kyle Williams, who's Director of Athletics. Provost James Johnston. Vice President Keith Lamb. Tyler Manning with the Wichita. Dr. Todd Giles, Dr. David Hartman, and then over here we have Claire Wallach with the Tom's Record News, Newman Wong with Staff Senate, and Cindy Ashlock, Executive Assistant to the President.
Well done as always. I will welcome everyone and thank you for participation in our committee meetings yesterday. Ms. Burks, thank you for joining us by phone again. Hope you continue to feel better. Just as a reminder, silence your devices as the meeting is being streamed live on the internet. It appears no one has signed up to provide public comment, and we will move on. Item 18-79 is the approval of the minutes of the November 9th and 10th and December 13th meetings of the board. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. We now move to the consent agendas. The executive committee met yesterday and our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only, 18-46, the committee minutes. Items presented for information only, 18-47, the campus construction update, 18-48, review of building names. Items approved by committee and placed on consent agenda. 18-49 Moffett Library Renovation Project. Contract approval request. Authorize the administration to contract with the construction manager at risk in M&F litigant for the first phase of construction at a value not to exceed $2 million. 18-50 Facility Services Complex Project Update. Authorize the administration to move forward with the use of the sites in the manner presented and to begin the design process for the complex. 18-51, Wichita Falls Museum ratification, both artwork ascensions and de-ascensions, to ratify the actions as presented. I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Gibbons, please present the Academic and Student Affairs Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic and Student Affairs Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. One item was presented for committee approval only, and that was 18-52, the committee minutes. A number of items were presented for information only, but it was a great discussion. We really appreciated all the input, and now we have a lot to go off and think about. 18-53 would be the faculty report. 18-54, the staff report, 18-55, student government report, 18-56, athletics report, 18-57, enrollment report for the spring of 2018, 18-58, report on student attrition, spring to fall 2017, 18-59 was the DFW expansion update, 18-60 was MSU's approach to dual credit, online, and distance education. We would like to place one item on the consent agenda that was approved by the committee, 18-61, spring break dates for 2018-2019 academic year. The committee approved changing MSU's spring break 2019 to March 18-22 to align with the schedule of the Wichita Falls Independent School District. Chairman Sanchez, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbons. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Crosno, please present the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, sir. The Finance Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only, item 1862, committee minutes. Items presented for information only, 1863, summaries of financial report and comprehensive campaign update, 1864, report on financial ratios. Items approved by committee and placed on the consent agenda were item 1865, financial reports. We accepted the fiscal year 2017 annual financial report and the monthly financial reports for September through December 2017. Item 1866, investment report. We accepted the first quarter 2018 investment report. Item 1867, investment policy changes. We approve changes to the two investment policies, 4.182 and 4.196. 1868, personnel reports and changes in the fiscal year 18 budget. We ratified the changes presented. Item 1868A, purchase of new pianos. We authorize the administration to purchase pianos at a cost not to exceed $1.2 million as presented. Item 1869, undergraduate and graduate application fees increase. Authorize increasing the undergraduate application fee to $40 and increasing the graduate application fee to $50 effective September 1, 2018. And last but not least, item 1870, tuition and fee review and recommendations 2018-2019. We approve the tuition and fee increases as presented. Chairman Sanchez, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Burks, please present the Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee report.
The Audit, Compliance, and Management Review Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only, 18-71 committee minutes. Items presented for information only, 18-72 Committee for Presidential Performance and Compensation Review, 18-73 Compliance Update, 18-74 Audit Update. Items approved by committee and placed on the consent agenda. Items 18-75 Joint Admission Medical Program Audit Report, accepted this report. 18-76 Public Funds Investment Act Audit Report, accepted this report. 18-77 NCAA Independent Accountants Report on Procedures Performed, accepted this report. And item 18-78 MSU Policies and Procedures Changes, we approve changes to Policy 4.131, Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action Policy Statement. Chairman Sanchez, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Burks. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18-80, the University Leadership Report, includes presentations on a number of topics. Dr. Shipley, please introduce this item.
Okay. I'm pleased today to bring Dr. Todd Giles and Dr. David Hartman forward, please, to make a presentation on the Lifelong Learning Center. This center was a dream of mine when I came here. I've been involved in two separate lifelong learning centers, and they'll tell you all about how we've gotten as far as we've gotten and what that means, but I particularly want to express my appreciation to both Todd and David for their tremendous leadership that has gotten us this far in about a year of thinking and dreaming and working with the community on this exciting prospect.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for giving us a few minutes this morning to share some information on lifelong learning centers and also what we as a task force have accomplished thus far and what we need to do as we continue in the future. Dr. Shipley brought Dave and I together back in September and charged us with putting together a committee made up partially of community members and partially MSU administrators. And I want to start out by just telling you who's on the committee. And it's a real honor to be working with some of these folks. I'm sure you'll recognize all of their names. Dave Hartman and I are co-chairing the committee. We also have on board Pat Thacker, John Hershey, Elizabeth Yeager, David Wolverton, Henry Florsheim, and we've just invited to join us Margie Reese from the Wichita Falls Alliance for Arts and Culture, and also Daryl Coleman. From MSU's side, we have ex officio Sam Watson, Kathy Zuckweiler, Lee Kidwell, Pam Morgan, Rhonda McClung, and I've learned in the last 5.5 years you can't have an important committee without having Newman Long.
That's right.
So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit with you about what lifelong learning centers, or LLCs, are, and then some of the things that we've accomplished thus far. As you all know, we already have a successful Center for Continuing Ed here at MSU. One of the things that, as committee members, we've grappled with a little bit is how does the continuing ed program differ from an LLC? As you all know, continuing ed offers certification classes, job training, but also courses in the arts. Now, an LLC differs in that they are collaborative, community-led organizations of learners. Most LLCs membership is 50 plus age-wise. A continuing ed class might offer a how to do such and such class. For example, painting 101, whereas a lifelong learning center is going to offer a more academically centered course such as the history of Renaissance painting. Okay, so on the surface they look rather similar, but actually they're really radically different. I'm going to see if I can figure this technology out. No? No?
Would someone help?
Where should I be pointing this?
David.
Not video, but is it on? No, it's vibrating. Well, it's still not. There we go. Okay. So,
Oops, you went forward again.
oh, intentionally. I was a little slow on the uptake there. What I want to do, I wanted to share some slides with you of recent and current Lifelong Learning Center catalogs. And you notice they all have the name, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, on there, or OLLI for short. The Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, just real briefly, they have funded very substantially 120 lifelong learning centers throughout the United States. They've been around since the early 1970s. Unfortunately for us, they're no longer funding startup LLCs. On the bright side, we have 120 really fantastic, successful lifelong learning centers from which to draw inspiration and information. As a task force, what we've done thus far is we've looked at 9 different lifelong learning centers, and I won't list all of them. I'll just name a few. Texas Tech, which has had an LLC for about a decade now. We've looked at large schools, smaller schools, private schools. We've also looked at Shepherd as well as a co-like institution, Virginia, Vanderbilt. So we're looking at a lot of really interesting institutions. Now, I did just really briefly a cursory search online for LLCs in the region. And I just wanted to point out that they're nothing new in the area. And again, we have a lot of great models to choose from. UT, UTEP, UT Galveston, Texas Tech, OSU, University of North Texas. I want to mention that 7 of us are going down next week. And they've been incredibly generous with us. They have scheduled an 8-hour day for us, from starting out meeting the president at 8:30 in the morning, which unfortunately means we're leaving at like 5:45, all the way through 4:30. We're going to attend some classes. We're going to meet some of the LLC members and leadership. So it's going to be a great opportunity. In April, Dave, Elizabeth Yeager, and myself are going to UNC Asheville to do another site visit. So the good thing is we really don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great folks out there to draw from. And what we found, we've spoken to 9 executive directors, and they are so interested and excited to hear that there's another LLC in the works. And they're very forthcoming with information for us. I probably should mention, though I think you already know this, the physical space is 2527 Hampstead, so on the corner of Hampstead and Glenwood. I want to mention a couple membership benefits. Now, I don't want to imply that we're going to have all of these, but best practices wise, these are some of the things that we've seen at numerous LLCs that we've looked at. Obviously, the obvious benefit, did I say obviously the obvious?
Yes.
Did Suzanne mention I teach English? The main benefit is courses, but I was thinking this morning about that, and from what we've heard, we've had, what, about 75 people at the focus groups? really what the main benefit is, it's a place, it's a venue for socialization. It's a place for like-minded community members to get together and learn and teach one another. But on a more specific practical level, the courses, and we've seen courses ranging from a one-and-done, 1-hour lecture to courses that last 4 to 6 weeks. And our membership is going to determine what we do. A lot of them have film series. I've been talking for several years with John Hershey. He's chomping at the bit to get a foreign film series here in Wichita Falls. They all offer in one form or another workshops. So it might be a one-day advanced planning care workshop. It might be a retirement planning workshop. One thing I'd like to see is something like behind the scenes of the MSU Theater, where members are taken behind the scenes before a production, and then maybe we have block seating for members to enjoy the theater together. This is something that I've done with my own undergraduate arts and literature society. I love these kind of connections. I love the cross-fertilization of the arts like this. Campus access is another thing that's really important. And on a very personal level, as a faculty member, this is really why I'm on board with this. The idea of getting community members on campus, getting more community members attending our concerts, our lectures, our art openings. Campus access includes things, and I'm not suggesting we're going to do all of these things, but it includes things like library access. It includes parking. It includes the ability to join the wellness center. Dining. This is something Pat Thacker's talked to us several times about. At one of the LLCs, I think it was UMass that she looked at, they were talking about how much the students, i.e. the undergrads, and the LLC members love meeting up in the dining hall. It's about bringing community members on campus, and it's about building relationships. Educational travel is something that most of them do. I'm imagining we'll start out regional, local, maybe partnering with the WFMA or the Kemp Center. And then hopefully doing, I know Suzanne's done some international travel through an LLC as well. There's tremendous opportunity here for us. They all offer brown bag lectures or lunches in one form or another. Special interest groups. These are member-determined and member-led groups. It might be a mahjong group. It might be a book club. It might be a gardening club. And finally, special members-only events, maybe concerts, parties, things like this. Types of classes. As in academia, we found that classes tend to be organized under broad umbrella headings. So things like health and fitness, history, philosophy, and religion. Now, in our research, we found several different models. Some schools, there's some LLCs rather, their classes are taught entirely by community members. Others we've seen, the classes are taught entirely by faculty. We're leaning more towards primarily community members. This would include retired working professionals, lawyers, judges, doctors, folks who had a career in the military, but also retired MSU faculty. I know there's a lot of MSU faculty who would really jump on board. One thing that I'm interested in as a faculty member, and this would be purely from a community service standpoint, there will be no expectation for faculty to teach at the LLC, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity for me to engage in community service as well. So, Dave, in just a few moments, will talk about some types of classes that our community is very interested in. Now, our aspirational model is UNC Asheville. As you all know, UNC is the home of COPLAC. They also have, it appears, the best LLC in the country, and I wanted to show these images to you. From what I read on their history online, they started out with, I think it was a $100,000 grant from the Osher Institute, and they built the program up, and then they raised the money in the community for this amazing facility, the Reuters Center. And what I wanted to point out, it's not just about taking classes. It's about having a place to socialize. It's about having a place to meet up, to get together, like I said, with like-minded individuals. From an administrative standpoint, LLCs are about building relationships, bridging the gap between town and gown, as we say. Again, as a faculty member, I'm really excited about extending our public liberal arts mission out into the community. There are great community engagement tools. We've seen, too, in our research that they contribute to economic development. We all know we have a lot of retired military folks retiring here in Wichita Falls. Having an active, engaged lifelong learning center is going to draw even more people into our community. I think they're wonderful donor development tools as well, because we're going to get people who maybe didn't graduate from here, but they're coming on campus. They're getting invested emotionally and intellectually on campus. So for donor development, I think it's a great idea, and it's going to be a real point of pride in our community and on our campus as well. And I want to wrap up with our mission statement. MSU's Lifelong Learning Center is a member-driven community of learners dedicated to inspiring and enriching the minds and spirits of Texomans over 50. And if any of you are wondering, I will be one of them in about a year. So I'm excited to have this for myself as well. So let me turn it over to my friend and colleague here, Dave Hartman, to chat with you for a few minutes about the 3 focus groups that we just wrapped up this week.
Yeah, great. First off, I want to thank Dr. Shipley for being the visionary behind this program. Thank you for the great honor of allowing us to do this. I want to thank Todd for being such an incredible colleague. Even though demographically he's a whippersnapper, he's been very much the Moses of this particular movement. We had 3 focus groups that concluded this past week. The numbers and the interest were beyond our greatest expectations. Enormous enthusiasm. We've discovered that there's a real hunger with our community for folks who experience the sheer exhilaration of learning. There's an old saying that riders have to ride for the same reason that cows have to give milk. Well, true learners have to learn, and wouldn't it be wonderful to learn without having to write a paper or to sweat a grade? And so what we're hoping to offer to the lifelong learners in our community is the opportunity to learn something that would enthrall them. And that became very, very clear in our focus groups. There was a whole host of folks who are interested in things that we could teach. And we've also had teachers in our community starting to come forth. I've long wanted to teach a course on the roots and branches of Abraham, a study of the inception of the great monotheistic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and not only teach that course, but to bring in adherents of those faiths so that we could learn from one another. Some of my greatest conversations with my friend Jesse Rogers had to do with science. I would love to enlist Jesse to teach a course on physics for poets and fellow travelers. We have been talking about having Fuad Bakari, our wonderful maestro of the Wichita Falls Symphony Orchestra, doing a seminar on for love of music. I was talking the other day, one of the courses that were requested was a course on Vietnam. Just yesterday I was talking to Colonel Bill Miller, who teaches history, teaches the history of diplomacy at Whitman Baptist, but also was a pilot in Vietnam, who said he would love the opportunity to teach a course on Vietnam to an interested audience. And obviously these classes are self-selecting, so all the folks who are there would be interested. Talked to Lynn Hoggart, who was one of our focus groups, to see if Jim might be able to teach a course, but she said Jim's health is not what we all would want it to be. But Lynn said she would teach. This morning I was thinking, oh, I would so love to get Lynn Hoggart to teach a course on poetry that speaks to the human condition. Other courses that have been recommended include a history of Texas law, hopefully led by a retired judge. I'm good friends with some retired judges. How to grow old gracefully. One is a whole number, celebrating being single, understanding the economy, Texas and Mexico relations. Altogether, there were over 55 recommendations of courses that folks would like to have taught. Those teachers are here. Those teachers would work for free because teachers also have things that exalt and inspire their spirits. And to have a class that is interested, that hangs on every word, that is engaged, I know that's Todd's great, great dream. And so
It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy. So here's the opportunity. Thank you for your patience and your interest.
Any questions?
Quickly, so space confines with that much interest, obviously, I mean, are you guys needing more space, wanting?
We potentially could. Pat Thacker, pointed out that across the street, First Christian Church, which I had the honor of serving for 17 years, and those wonderful patient people put up with me all that time, would be pleased to offer some of its space for courses if they exceeded the space at the house that the university has so generously provided. We're very, very mindful that whatever we do, we have to do out of respect for the ongoing mission of the university. So we work very closely with Dr. Shipley, with the office, to ensure that whatever spatial needs we have, whatever other things, we're cleared through the university.
And they can meet in the museum, they can
Yes.
meet at the Wellness Center, all of our facilities would be open to bring down groups. So I think initially they're going to have more than enough space. That house has a lot of space. So we're really fortunate that we were able to take advantage of that. I'd say the other thing we need to point out is that this is as I've told many of the board members before the meeting, this is a boat on its own bottom. It funds itself. So there will be no student fees, no tuition going toward this. This is a member-funded and member-driven organization.
I love the idea, but I'm be honest with you, I would enroll in one of those classes. I think that's a fantastic idea and outreach to the community. How's that?
Once you're 50.
We do make exceptions for whippersnappers.
I would love to run the whippersnapper category. How is the community finding out about this? How are we letting them know?
One of the things that we're very mindful, we have 5 functioning committees. One of them is public relations, folks who invest in the community. We're going to be using a whole host of media, the Times Record News, of course, television media. Those of you who are unaware, Todd is a radio personality. He has a regular program on the public radio station at KCCU. Very, very enlightening to talk about this simply. We will use social media. And we're getting pretty close to the point where the work of the project is going to be going to the specific committees. The folks on the Public Relations Committee are very mindful and very adapted at reaching out to the community and inspiring them with this project. Is that, Todd?
They'll probably publish a course schedule that will get mailed out to interested people, and that will be probably the biggest impact when in the summer this hits your mail and you realize I can sign up for these courses.
Absolutely. And our aspiration is to offer 50 hours of courses our first semester. This will be our trial run. This will be our shakedown cruise. It has to be excellent. It has to be excellent. And it is our hope that it will grow subsequently after the first fall semester.
So you're planning to start in the fall?
That's our hope. That's our aspiration.
And then how much is your membership?
You know, we're looking, I'm going to let Todd speak to this, Nancy. What we're envisioning right now is 2 tiers of membership, much like UNT has. And Todd, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. What we've seen is often LLCs do indeed offer two tiers. So just real quick examples. We've seen LLCs that have something as low as like a $20 membership fee, but then it's $40 per class. So Texas Tech, it's one and done classes at $40 a pop. We've seen schools that have a gold membership, for example, $325, all inclusive, except for educational travel. But those members get discounts for travel. The silver membership at that institution is $85, and then you pay a fee per class. So we have a variety of ways to choose from. It seems the consensus from the focus groups is to have a 2-tiered offering. And another thing that a lot of people have said is we need to offer scholarships for folks who can't afford to pay $320 or whatever we end up with. Any other questions?
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Real quick.
guys, thank you, Dr. Giles, Dr. Hartman, Dr. Shipley, for presenting this information. I look forward to seeing that really take off. I think it's going to be a tremendous outreach program in the community, bring revenue.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for your gracious welcome.
Kevin, you're gonna be involved in that, right?
Okay, you ready for me to do it?
I'm ready to use
Okay,
that.
thank you.
I'm a whippersnapper, though.
You are a whippersnapper.
If you're a whippersnapper, I can speak from here, right? Yes, I do.
I think I'm gonna do it.
Okay, the next, okay, perfect. You can just follow you know how to guess what I'm saying next. We got this now. once you get it up. Okay, good. I wanted to take a moment to update you on the Boundless Opportunities campaign, so we can move to the next slide, hopefully.
Okay.
Good, okay. I think what's really the most important thing I want to talk to you about today is how this campaign progresses. And Tony alluded to this yesterday in his report. But in 16 and 17, we started thinking about the campaign and shaping it. A lot of work went in behind the scenes. That's why you didn't see any fundraising totals of a lot of merit in that year, because we were really laying low for a year and getting our case written. And many of you have seen the beautiful booklet that we put together with beautiful photographs and a nice case statement and our 4 pillars of the campaign. And that led to developing a cornerstone gift list that we're going down person by person, foundation by foundation, and we're well into that cornerstone gift list. And so in 17-18, we began making those asks, and we included you, of course, in our campaign. And now we're into a celebratory mode where we're celebrating some of our gifts. I'll talk to you about it in a moment. What will be happening in the next year, we're going to keep going with the Cornerstone gift requests. We spent a lot of time with foundations this year. We're moving now toward individuals. We start with individuals with the greatest history of giving, and then we'll move toward individuals with less of a history. And it's not necessarily by amount, but maybe more by constancy and continuation of their loyalty. And so you'll see in the next 2 years a lot of individual outreach, individual meetings with folks. We'll be moving in the fall into a faculty and staff campaign, and that again will not be about amount but about percentage. We'd really love to have 100% of our faculty and staff contribute in some way to the campaign, and it's just a symbol of how much we recognize this campaign can do for us. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And so all the way through, next year we'll still be doing dedications and celebrations. Then we'll move into a greater emphasis on planned giving with Rhonda here. She will have been out meeting people and establishing good lists. We'll be reaching out to the alumni for the alumni portion of the campaign, and we'll keep going with dedications and celebrations. We'll really focus on alumni and begin finishing off the campaign as we plan the centennial. A lot of universities have a centennial look and feel, and that's gearing up for the centennial. And as we celebrate our centennial, we'll be closing down the campaign and doing a larger unified sort of recognition. So we were lucky as we started thinking about a 7-year campaign that it ended with our becoming 100 years old. And what we're trying to show you is that excitement should build at every step of the campaign. So let me talk to you now about the results we've seen so far. We got kicked off in fine fashion with a vote of confidence from the Pretty Foundation that really gave us a sense of dynamism to begin to reach out to the other foundations in our area. We're so excited about our ability to experiment with the foundation on how we best attract and fund and educate our first generation students, and that will be ongoing for 3 years. We were pleased when Carol Dillard came to me and said, I just think we're a ranching community and we need to teach folks about the economics of ranching, and there's no better place to do it than the Dillard College. And so her gift will establish a new program for us, an agribusiness concentration, which is an economics, a part of the economics major. And we are already moving that through curriculum approvals. We're looking for hiring. 2 professors are part of her contribution. And I just think it'll be great to have this. Keep students from migrating toward Tarleton to study this, and we could easily feed into TCU's fantastic ranch management program. You celebrated with us last night with Dale and Joe Prothro and the Prothro Foundation, who contributed to having us choose all new pianos for our programs where needed, and so that's a remarkable gift that will really stimulate our music program. And Last but not least, the Fane Professorship in the Fine Arts in terms of the academic area. We asked Martha to help us launch attention to the need to promote faculty excellence through endowed professorships. And so this is our first endowed professorship of the campaign, the Fane Professorship in Fine Arts. Moving to facilities, we engaged in probably 6 months of conversations with Matt Kennedy, who oversees several foundations, and we put in, after long conversations with him about what we all felt was needed, we put in 2 big requests. The first is the Bridwell Student Activity Center, which will replace the function of Daniels Hall, which is right now a facilities support building, but it's right across from our student center, and we want to turn this activity center into a place that really expands the impact of our existing student center, with a special emphasis on space for our active and supportive Greek life, and noting the engagement that Mac and Connie Kennedy have had over the years. Yesterday you approved the naming of the Greek Common Space in their name. And aligned with this, the facilities group has to have somewhere to go, and so the Bryant Edwards Foundation is helping us build a facilities administration building so that the facilities can move out of Daniel and into their own new shiny space. Last but not least, you can see Boland Hall here, and it will proudly maintain the name Boland Hall. But it will be refurbished. It's the beginning. It's a $5 million refurbishment that could lead to about $20 million of needed work, but it was the number one priority. When we did our campus focus groups, it was the number one priority that faculty and staff listed. I want to publicly say how much I appreciate your changing the name, then naming the college, but leaving the name on the building. So our last college without a donor name now has a donor name, and it will be called the McCoy College of Science, Math, and Engineering. So I think those are the gifts so far. Is there another slide? So those are the gifts we're at right now. We have other asks out, and I hope that in our May meeting you'll have a similar slideshow about the remaining large gifts. The takeaways are that you really establish a foundation for a campaign like this, and you establish it by input from established donors. And we set our sights really high for MSU, but we brought out beautiful materials. We were very secure in our asks. We did great research about the amounts we should ask for and what we should ask people for. And sometimes our gift amount totals were even higher than we expected. In our initial conversations with donors, they started at a lower amount, but as we talked to them, almost all of them got to the amount we were trying to target. This has been a heavy lifting year, and I think we'll have another year or two of that, and then I'll hand it all off to Tony, and he can take it from here. And Tony's been a great support, but I've been out there quite a bit. The success of this past year, we believe, will bolster individual giving enthusiasm, and it'll help us with the long-range plan of the campaign, which is really to target new donors in new places with new gifts that will 10 years from now be the basis for the next campaign, and they will be new established donors. So what we're looking for is we want to increase the number of new donors, we want to increase levels of giving, and we want to secure multi-year pledges. And we're finding that that's one of the biggest draws of this campaign, is that we're not asking you for a gift tomorrow. We're asking you to think about the next 7 years and your dreams for engaging in and supporting MSU and where that fits in the next 7 years. And that's how we're going to build our advancement program. So our final word is just that we believe we've set a good campaign plan in motion, and it will continue to require hard work, and it will probably engage all of you at the table because you are voices for us, and we appreciate what many of you have already done to help us. And that's it on the campaign. Any questions? Comments?
Great.
Woohoo.
Thank you, Dr. Shipley. If there are no other questions or comments, then is there any
I have a little bit more on my
Okay.
presentation, yeah.
Go.
I'm going to do yet another topic. I'm sorry to talk so much this morning, but we had a shorter meeting yesterday, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the increase in accountability that you saw. You had the members sitting around don't know, you had a board packet that had about this much about Cleary and Title IX and our audits in that regard. And I've been asking myself since I got here, is it just Texas or am I just mired in policy suddenly? And I went to our spate of conferences that happened in January, and I found that this attention to a regulatory environment is everywhere. And I know it started with the Obama administration's emphasis on Title IX and the struggle that we as institutions had to realize that the federal government expected us to become police of student behavior in a way that was new. That has receded a bit. Cleary and reporting of crimes is front and center, as you can tell. And so I asked myself, what parallel do I see in my long career in higher education? And I was reminded that about 25 years ago, we were suddenly, as faculty and academics, asked to begin to measure learning outcomes. And we had been teaching our whole lives, and we just believed that a grade was the measure of whether a student learned or not. But our accrediting bodies came to us, and they really put the clamps down. And for 5 years, we had to develop learning outcomes and ways to measure student learning that were completely new to us. And that was because our accrediting bodies didn't feel that we had been accountable enough in the measuring of student learning. I think that accountability has now shifted to student behavior and student safety and faculty and staff behavior. And I think that's what we're going to need to get used to, that just like we measured learning outcomes, we now have to measure how effectively we are monitoring student safety, how effectively we are monitoring faculty workload and faculty roles and staff roles in our community. And we're just going to be under the microscope in these areas. And I think it traces back, if you just think of our initials, MSU, in the past couple of months, Michigan State University has shown that once again, despite their intention to have good oversight, it wasn't enough, and people got hurt and their lives were damaged. So we live in a very complex environment now where we have very high responsibility. And I just applaud Barry's office and Lee's office, despite how I chafe at the restrictions. I applaud the fact that we are getting on board with this regulatory environment and doing what we need to do to audit our own behavior. So I just wanted to tell people I kind of get it now, and I'll try to be more supportive of you in the future. But I think we also need to understand this is really hard on our faculty and staff. You need to understand this is a new era, and it brings a lot of extra work. And it makes you feel that you may not have done your job correctly. It makes you feel that you're under suspicion. It makes you feel that you're under indictment. And it's not that you've done anything. It's that someone else has done something that has caused lawmakers to say, you're not being responsible enough. So what I hope will happen, just like our measuring of learning outcomes, as our accreditors forced us to do, has resulted, in my opinion, in better teaching and better learning. Hopefully these regulatory environments will lead to a better outcome for our students, our faculty, and our staff. I'll be happy to take any
Yes, sir.
questions.
Questions for Dr. Shipley?
Do you feel there's any, what is the environment you think of administrative need we're going to have for student loans that are getting a lot of attention now, the lack of paying them back? Is any of that going to push back on us, you think, for more supervision, more academic oversight?
Well, Keith could answer that. I did forget to say that we'll be hiring new positions, and so yesterday you talked about we need another person in compliance with Title IX and Cleary. I think we're doing really well with loans. I think what we monitor is our default rate, and Keith can tell you real quickly what our default rate is and how we monitor it if you want to know, but that will be the indicator.
No, I'm really asking, do you think there will be an undercurrent of us having to add to administrative oversight of student loans and outcomes? Have you got any sense of that?
I don't think there'll be an added oversight of student loans, outcomes of what kind?
I'm referring to the fact that many student loans are not being paid back. And what I'm reading is that there's a somewhat of a push to push that back to the university. And I'm wondering if there's any sense on your part that that will happen, we will need oversight of that, or it's an open-ended question.
Why don't you tell the rules around when we have to pay and what happens with default?
Absolutely. So the federal government, as you mentioned, looks at our default rate, and they'll take a cohort. So we'll measure the cohort 3 to 5 years out. And gosh, off the top of my head, and I'll have to verify this, I think that where we would start getting dinged is around 15% default rate. Right now, we're at, I think, just north of 7, about 7.1, 7.2. We actually have a full-time financial aid specialist that monitors our student loans and contacts individuals to make sure they're in repayment properly. And not every school does that, but we're fairly, as an independent, fairly vulnerable if our default rate approaches that 15%.
What's our responsibility that approaches that?
I'm sorry.
What is our responsibility if it overrides 15%?
You know, it could trigger an audit. I think the hammer that the feds have are over Title IV funds. They could always, the potential penalty is loss of Title IV funds, which is all of our federal financial aid. Generally, what they do is come in and audit.
But we're no longer responsible for the default repayment. At one time, there were portions of a population for which we had to pay back if the students defaulted.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. I'm not sure.
That's what I think we're asking that we need to know.
Okay, yeah, so in my few short years dealing with financial aid, we have not had to pay back defaulted loans. So
why don't you look up the
current
federal guidelines on that?
I will.
Unless Marilyn knows them.
I think it was the Perkins
Yeah, back when
loan. We're not doing Perkins.
when we had Perkins loans, if the students defaulted, I knew there was a population of
Okay.
students we had to pay back.
Thank you.
But let's make that current.
We can.
And that would, and thank you, and that would fall under the future Vice President for Enrollment Management, so Keith will not be here answering those questions anymore.
Regrettably.
Yeah. And this gives me an opportunity to point out that in your folder today is the description of the profile. Did you get that in people's
I did
folder?
not, but I will send
Oh.
it to them.
Totally.
Totally.
Oh my gosh, Debbie actually didn't do something for once. Debbie will send you the leadership profile for the Vice President for Enrollment Management. And the last thing I forgot to say is this is a really good magazine for all of you to read. You get it every time. And in particular, what I took some of my remarks from was the end article, which says risking your reputation. So the reason we do all this compliance is there's nothing more valuable than our reputation. It's not money, it's nothing, it's our reputation, and any of the things we're monitoring now can impact our reputation. And this magazine believes it is part of your fiduciary responsibility that we monitor these things so that we don't risk our reputation.
Would it help in your reporting, administrative costs are rising, so you look at it from the outside and say, well, administrative costs are rising. Would it help you to report or to try to call out how much of that is due strictly to this oversight?
Yes, we've wanted to do that. Have we done that yet? We've talked about doing that, that we take all the new expenses
Right.
under compliance and tally those up, and we can do that. And I've seen those presented by the big guys.
And it may really show that the administrative costs are flat if we did not have these.
They would be.
It would show a big difference in the picture.
I think administrative costs would actually stay down, but the regulations and policies that keep being added and added and added that we have to count and monitor and report on, you have to keep hiring people.
I think that picture would help me in evaluating our costs.
So Marilyn, Chris, please do that. Thank you.
You know, and I agree that particular periodical that comes out to us is tremendously valuable to read. I do think that, this board has been very active about concerns over audit, concerns over compliance. And I appreciate y'all's energy and really having that synergy of the board really kind of focus on encouraging, the university and the administration to stay on that. I would tell you that, Dr. Shipp was absolutely right. It doesn't matter in the end. I mean, think of the universities in the recent past, that, things have happened, and it very quickly comes to the board. It says, like, where were y'all? What were you guys doing? Why weren't you asking these questions? And I would tell you, having an active board like we have is really important to the university and to what we're trying to do in keeping students and this university and its faculty safe and compliant. So thank you guys for that. And thank you, Dr. Shipley, for your guidance. Is there anything else to come before the board? Well, if not, this concludes our business today. Thank you for your participation. We are adjourned.